This week's episode of I Was a Teenage Film Snob is not brought to you by mobsters, gangsters, or guys from Wall Street. Welcome to I Was a Teenage Film Snob. I'm James Chalmers, your friendly neighborhood film snob. And this week we're doing something a little bit different. We've been doing lots of lists lately, which is kind of the whole point of the show. But every now and then we have to abandon the high fidelity of it all and just have a general chat. And when I'm chatting movies, there's no one I'd rather go on a tangent with than today's guest. You know him, you love him. He's been on, 30% of the shows. Feels like it, probably more. Please welcome back fan favorite, listener favorite, my favorite, Nick Owen. Welcome back to the show, mate.
Thanks, James. It's always lovely to be back on, and I'm really excited for this week's episode because we are hopefully going to be covering a movie that we saw together, which is a rarity these days, isn't it?
You say these days, it's kind of a rarity in general. We have seen a handful of movies together. We went and saw Sin City Part 2 back in the day.
This is true, but why do I have a feeling, so where you used to live, there was a Reddings, and I feel like I went to that Reddings quite often, and I feel like I'd only go there with you. Like, obviously,
now
nowhere
that you
near
say
as
it,
frequently as you went to that Reddings, but yeah.
Yeah, I went there every week. It's funny you mentioned that because I was thinking Sin City 2 and Gone Girl, but we also saw Joker together, and we saw Blade Runner together, and we saw Alien Covenant together.
Yes, yeah, we did.
So we actually went and saw quite a few things. What was really funny is before we started recording, I was having a little bit of a heartburn or something, which I've never experienced until this year. So, like, you can tell the body is starting to change as I get older because it's reacting to things differently. But you're like, if you need to, you can give me a script and I'll do the intro. All of my intros are unscripted. I just make it up on the spot. So that's why sometimes there's gold and sometimes you're like, what was he thinking?
Oh, well, they sound really professional, mate. For some reason I picked you like scripting these the night before, like up till late in a study, making little adjustments to what you're going to say. But there you go.
I will think about it in advance. So, like, I'm recording 3 shows this week. This is the second of 3 I'm doing. And last night we did a show, which will be out this coming Sunday. And I thought a little bit about how I was going to open it up. And then Friday, you're coming back, and we're doing an end of year show, and that's all I'll say about it for now. But I've kind of been thinking about how I'm going to intro that as well. So, if like once with this kind of a big event or there's quite a few moving parts, I'll try to put a little bit of thought into it. But like tonight, I was like, we're just having a chat, so let's just not overcomplicate it, because then I get inside my own head as well.
Well, question without notice. As a host, do you get nervous either hosting one-on-ones or with big group ones that you sometimes run?
Interesting question. Love this question.
I'd like to see how maybe the people want to know how the sausage is made a little bit, Let
me take you to the back of the butchers, as they say, and the delicatessen, if you will. It honestly depends. If I'm doing a recording with you or with Tina or Josh, or actually any of the regulars, I really don't get nervous. When I first started the show, I didn't get super nervous because, as you know, we did pass the remote for a good 3-4 years. So sitting in a room with friends or even online with friends is not too daunting. Maybe when I first came back, when I first started this show after a couple of years away, I was going to be a little bit nervous just because, like, I hope I don't sound dumb and I hope I get it right. And then I kind of realized that part of my charm is that I do sound dumb sometimes. Like, I've got a lot of knowledge, but, sometimes the elocution isn't always there. But I will get nervous for first-time guests. And maybe first-time guests I don't know so well. So the first time Maddie came on, I was a little bit nervous because we were friendly, but she was Tina's friend. I was like, I don't want to, seem dumb in front of my wife's friend, and, I want to make sure she feels comfortable because we haven't spent a ton of time talking together. And sorry, Tina's messaging me from the other room. She knows I'm recording. I was like, what's going on? When I had Tyler and Harley on about a year ago, the filmmakers, I was very nervous on that episode. And you can tell if you listen to the intro, I'm trying to catch my breath because I'm reading it. That's one time I did script it.
No, I thought you sounded really natural because that felt like a really big event in the film snob universe. And fun fact, like I remember listening to it specifically because I was out in Gippsland, and I was cycling. I took some leave off work, and I had family out in Gippsland, and so took my bike and I was out cycling, and I'm like, oh, I'll go out for a couple of hours on the bike, and I thought this is a good opportunity to get through this podcast. So I've got fond memories of listening to you do that crossover kind of event.
Once I got through the intro, I was okay. Just the intro, I was nervous, and then once I went to the actual conversation, I was okay. Because I'd only met them that morning. Like literally, Harley had messaged me a week earlier saying, "Hey, we really like your page. We like some of the clips we've heard. We'd love to, promote our movie with you." And I was like, "Oh," and I've told this story a number of times, but I was like, "Well, this is clearly not real." And also, and I didn't even think that Harley. And I've told this story before as well. I never even thought that Harley would be a girl. I'm like, loves horror movies on the internet. Harley is a unisex name, definitely a dude. And then wasn't like was just lovely, and Tyler was so lovely as well. And like considering they're a couple of kids from Hollywood, like they could have very well not been lovely. And I told that to them afterwards. I was like, you guys are so lovely. Like, you sure you're from Los Angeles? And but not originally, of course. So once I got to the conversation, it was fine. And then any kind of crossover I've done with other podcasts, I get nervous a little bit. And you can hear it when I'm on their shows because I get really obnoxious. And not obnoxious to the point where it's like unbearable, but like I'm almost a caricature of myself on their podcast. I get very loud. I'm very like, if you think I'm loud and cracking jokes on my podcast, like turn it up to 11 when I'm a guest on other podcasts. Especially the first time I was on Michael's podcast, when I was on We Love Horror for the first time. Like he does this game with first time guests where he plays Desert Island, and it's meant to be like a 5-minute bit. I dragged it out for like 45 minutes, which he loved. He was like, "That's what I've been missing," and I'm like, "Yeah, cool." But the last time I got nervous would have been last week, I suppose, because I did the live stream for the first time. So that time I was nervous then. I even said it while I was recording. I'm like, so in case you can tell, I'm a little bit nervous. So yeah, I do still get nervous, but it will depend on the guest and the circumstances for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long answer to a question that probably didn't need as much explanation as you got.
No, but I would say that you are one of your talents as a host, as well as like keeping things structured and setting the tone. But is like not everyone. I think a lot of people like movies, but until you've been on a few podcasts and had these conversations, I don't know if everyone knows how to eloquently talk about movies. And that was a skill that I've picked up along the way. We've obviously been podcasting together for a number of years.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
In the early days, you sort of like, I know that I loved films and I could I could ramble about the certain films I loved a lot. But, in terms of how to actually open up and discuss them in a meaningful way, I think you're a really good host in kind of fostering that.
Oh, thank you. I will say, and this is like I'll only say it because it's been mentioned quite a few times now, is that is one piece of feedback I do get a lot, where whether it was Harley and Tyler, or like Liz, my sister-in-law, or like Michael and Kevin, who are from the two different podcasts, We Love Horror and Midnight Terrors. Everyone's like, you're so passionate, like you just like can talk and talk and talk, and I was like, yeah, but that's the only thing I can talk about. Like, so it's it's a skill that I've got, but it's very niche. Like, try to get me talking about anything else, and I struggle a bit more. But no, thank you for the lovely words. That was not staged for the listeners who think that I was just trying to get a little compliment going. But it's my
now
favorite
say something
thing.
nice about me.
Yeah, you're a hell of a guy.
Thank you. That's all. That's it. That's all I needed. There's my nourishment.
If we want to get real, in my wedding speech, I did in my wedding toast, I referred to you as the nicest person I've ever known. So that's
that was very sweet.
Yeah, I can't remember what superhero shirt you were wearing now. I feel like you were wearing
I was the Flash.
Flash, yeah, because I was wearing Batman and my brother was Superman. I referred to him as the best person I know. But yeah, I've said that a couple of times in speeches and stuff. I referred to you as the nicest person, which is true, nicest person I've ever met. So.
I think that was just before I stole that old lady's handbag.
Yeah, it was tough to give that speech after that. Like, I had to make some tweaks, and I was like, he was the nicest guy I ever knew, and like he's still around. I'm like, yeah, the version of him is. Like,
that was my old turn. Well, I can't think of the phrase? My multiversal self.
Yeah, exactly. You had to wear that Flash shirt and go back in time to undo your bad deeds. So it's nice to have you back. I'm trying to think the last time you were on. It was a little while ago now. I'm thinking
That's right. I think, was it
Apocalypse.
Maddie and myself?
Oh,
Was it
Interstellar. Yeah. The Nolan
Interstellar?
film. Yeah.
The Nolan, yeah.
Yeah, great episode. Actually, you know what? I was a little bit nervous on that episode as well, and not because I was not because I was like, oh no, like it's Maddie and Nick. What will they think of me? I was nervous because I was bringing two people together who'd never met before. I was like, I love both of these people, and I think they're going to really get on. But you don't know for sure until you start having the conversation. And thankfully, I was right. But also, the two of you are probably the most eloquent speakers I've had on the podcast. Maybe David as well, when it comes to talking films. Like the two of you are very clever and very smart when we talk about films. And my passion kind of outruns my elocution sometimes. So I was like, oh, I hope I can hold my own against these guys, and I hope I don't sound too dumb. Like, and again, like not that you guys would judge me, but I was just like, we're talking about clever films here, like these Nolan films. I might sound a little bit out of place or a little bit behind, these two here. And I don't think I did for the most part, but I was probably a little bit nervous then as well, just because like there's a few different moving parts going on. But I love that episode. That was so good. I was so thrilled that the two of you got on as well as you did.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
What have you been up to? Have you been watching some movies since you were last on? Anything? I know obviously we're going to talk about one movie in particular this evening.
We have. I did. I was actually off work unwell a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, you know what? It's very rare that I mean, everyone's so busy these days, but very rare that I have that time where it's like there's nothing else going on. So I caught up with a few movies that are not necessarily new, but were new to me. So John Wick 4, which was
nice. I still haven't seen it, so
yeah. Are you up? Well, when I say up to date, have you seen the first three, or are you sort of?
I watched them because of you. I'd seen the first one, and it hadn't blown me away. Like, because at that point I'd seen because like it's the best action film of all time, and I'd seen other films. I'm like, oh, like it's fine. Like it's a good action film, but I've seen better. But then Tina started showing interest, so we watched the first one, and we watched that. I rewatched it with her because you had gone on about how good 2 and 3 were. So yeah, I've seen 2 and 3, but I haven't seen the new one yet. That's almost 3 hours long, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really, really long. And I really enjoyed it. I'd say it probably sits. So, the first one felt like a small, like almost like an independent action film. And I really loved it. And then I thought it was almost astonishing the way that the second and third films like built on the lore of the universe, and the scope and the scope increased.
I think 2 is probably. I've only seen 2 and 3 once. I think 2 is my favorite of the 3, but 3 in terms of story and kind of character arcs. But 3, that whole sequence where he's in front of the weapons cases and he's like fighting like 10 guys and then just like escapes on a horse. It's so ridiculous, but in the best possible way.
Yeah, and this one is like it's no holds barred. It is like incredible, the action scenes and the choreography that goes into them. And there's like, I mean, I can't even tell you how astonishing this one, what they call a oneer in the old industry, like a one take kind of longish scene. And
I love a one take.
It's in like an old abandoned church, I think it is, and the camera goes from like third person, like following John Wick, to like panning for a bird's eye view of the action. It's incredible, and he goes from room to room, like clearing them out as only John Wick can do. And there's an incredible scene of him trying to get up. It's really metaphorical. He's trying to reach. He has to climb this really, really long set of stairs. In the finale in Paris, they're going up to this church in Montmartre, and
I think I've been there. I've probably been there actually.
You probably have. It's a really famous church, like up on that hill there.
Oh yeah, I've been to that one. Yeah, I definitely have. Tina and I went there on our honeymoon. So
I thought I saw you there. Were you there when John Wick was there as well?
Yeah, I was the guy hiding behind the horse. I was just like,
but I will just say that, like, I think it's kind of like I would use the analogy of like the universe expanding. Of like, I feel like it's hit this point now where I don't know, like, I was almost like a bit. You get so used to the insane levels of action. I was almost just like bored by him like cleaning out these massive rooms of people. Like I think it's just sort of almost like overexposed to it. So I think I probably didn't enjoy it quite as much as the previous couple of films, but definitely an incredible spectacle. Like there's just not many action films or any kind of films that have this level of practical craftsmanship to it. So definitely recommend.
Yeah, I definitely want to check it out. I really enjoyed 2 and 3. Which is the one that ends with like they're in like the room and there's like all the glass and they keep getting thrown through all the glass plates. Is that 2?
I want to say 2, but I
Yeah.
get 2 and 3 mixed up a lot.
Because that was it. Like I remember just being like that being relentless. I'm like, oh my god, like
Yeah.
just like it was just so insane. And those films, I mean, relentless is a great word for those films because they're just nonstop. But no, I do want to check out 4. I will get to it eventually. Just got to make some time for it. With you mentioned there's like a great church scene in John Wick 4. How does it compare to the church scene in Kingsman? Because that to me is one of the best, not only one of the best fight scenes of all time, but one of the best fight scenes in a church for sure.
Yeah. You know what? I'd say it pips it.
Yeah.
There's like it's pretty like I mean, I've loved action films for as long as I've been alive.
Yeah.
Even when I was like 1 day old, I was like, get me an action film. And
Well, I
there's this
mean,
like
the fact that your mum gave birth to you on like a speeding bus, like that definitely
yeah, I know.
influenced.
But
I'm sorry, Sally. Um,
I'm sure she'll send her Cheerio to you every
yeah,
time I say that we've caught up. She's just like, oh, say hi to James for
your
me.
mum's such a big fan of me, and like I've only had a couple of interactions, but she's so lovely, so I'll take it.
You make an impression.
She's like,
I'd say,
he's just so natural in his podcast.
yeah, definitely. That is something she would say. Um, what point am I trying to? Oh, there's a gun that it's rare that I haven't seen. It's so new. It's like this kind of shotgun, and the bullets like catch fire and light the person on fire, and it's
Oh
like
my
when
god,
you're shooting that from above, it's really cool. So I
that's
would say it
insane.
picks it.
It sounds made up, but like even
Yeah.
if it is made up, I'm so glad someone made that up. It's like, do you remember in Underworld how they made bullets with UV light in them to kill vampires? It's like there's no
I
way.
don't, but I love it. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love all that stuff. So John Wick 4, what else have you been checking out? You said you watched a couple?
Yes, I'm just referring to my list. All right, I cannot do a list of things I've watched without going to one of my all-time favorite directors. I watched The Killer directed by David Fincher,
The
starring
Finch
Michael
himself.
Fassbender.
I
Yes.
still, yeah, sorry. I can't help it. Whenever we talk about stuff, I have to give something a nickname. Do you know, I still laugh about Lawrence Morpheus Fishburne. Like, that's LMF.
LMF.
I still
I
haven't
loved
seen The
it.
Killer, but yeah,
I
you did.
loved it. I'll try and give a spoiler-free review, but obviously, if you've seen the trailers, you'll know it follows Michael Fassbender, who's like this lone wolf assassin. And in fact, I'll stop there in terms of plot because I actually don't know what was in the trailer and what was not. So I don't want to give anything else away, but it's really sleek. It's really sophisticated and it's really streamlined. The scope of The Killer is you really only see his point of view. It doesn't, like if you think about Seven or Gone Girl, they're really expansive. This one is just like, if you know what, it's about like love it, like it's about the craft of anything really, but the lens here is the craft of being a really effective assassin. So it's pretty much a one session watch. You know, it's not long, but it's really cool. So we definitely recommend.
It's so funny you mentioned this. I was thinking about this before, and I guess I was thinking about what we're going to talk about tonight. Like, I wasn't planning my interest so much, but one thing I want to mention, like 2023, not only have we seen the return of so many great directors since the pandemic, so a lot of directors have released films this year for the first time since COVID, but so many of them come back and have reinvented themselves. Like, Oppenheimer is so different to any other Nolan film before. Like the way it's shot like an action film, but it's so different to anything he's made before. The Killer sounds like it's very different to anything Finch has done before. The movie we're going to talk about tonight is so different to what that director has made before. It's just this like wonderful period, and I'm trying to think of others like. I would even say, a film that you and I are probably going to see together coming soon is the new Michael Mann film. Looks very different to anything he's done before. It just
Mm,
feels like we're in this wonderful period of like reinvention and just kind of like directors and artists swinging for the fences. I remember when COVID was over, I was like, I hope we see that resurgence of like weird films. I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is like a real demonstration of that. So like, look, we learned a couple of years ago that we might not have much time left. Like, we should just create the weird stuff and see
mm,
what sticks and just tell the stories we want to tell. And now we're seeing it again and again, like this change in attitude. And I'm not saying that like Fincher was like, oh man, I've been stagnant. But I think he's just like, I just want to do something different and trying to change my approach to filmmaking. And it feels like so many directors are doing that. Even Greta Gerwig, to an example, to a certain extent, like Barbie is so different to anything she's made before as well. And I'm just talking about the content, just like the way it's shot and like the way that everything's staged. It's just, yeah, I was seeing it a lot, and it's a really
mm.
exciting time for cinema. I think, especially when
Uh,
people are saying that this decade hasn't offered much. I think it's just incorrect. There's just so much interesting stuff
yeah,
going
and
on.
I think we're about to be up for like a wonderful couple of years, and I think as well there's an element of like, I think maybe I'll mention a couple of other films at the end of this discussion point. We'll sort of pivot back to that, but you know, I know you and I kind of somewhat disagree on this point, but I would say that like Marvel having this sort of like quiet period and their films haven't been going as well has sort of like given some space to some other types of film, and given some room to breathe for things like The Killer, or like another film I saw recently, Tar, which is a really great film, and there's
I still haven't
like
seen that.
really original ideas
I would
that are
agree
coming
with you.
through.
I'm the eternal optimist, and I have been on this show since inception. The whole kind of theory behind this show, or the whole mantra, was like that if every movie is someone's favorite film, then there are no bad movies. But I'm not insane. Like, I know that there has been a dip in quality, or not even dip in quality, but just like Marvel was on this consistent, like it was going to happen. Like, they just had success after success. Like,
Mm,
it's just like with the John Wick action film. At some point, like something it has
mm,
to change, otherwise it's going to become stagnant. And I've enjoyed every Marvel film that's coming out, and that's because like there's always something to look forward to. Like, I actually went and saw the Marvels a couple of weeks ago, and I really enjoyed it. Like, is it the best Marvel film they've ever made? Like, no, not even close. But it's not a train wreck, and it's not garbage, and it's not a mess. Like, it's just simple. It's not elaborate.
mm.
Like, it's very self-contained. It doesn't do much to progress the universe, except for some of the post-credit sequences. But that's okay. Like, people are forgetting that Marvel was simple at one point. Like, Phase One, like Iron Man wasn't setting anything up. Like, Nick Fury came at the end and said he was working on an initiative, but that was just a joke. Like, the
Mm.
filmmakers had no they were like, we didn't know what we were doing. We're just putting in this, thought it'd be cool, but there was no plan. There was no like goal. They didn't expect anything
Mm.
because it was the first movie they'd made as a studio.
Well,
Um, yeah,
one
sorry.
one criticism I would level is that, like, and it could just be particular to me, could just be me, not my own way that I enjoy films, is like I almost feel like you need a guidebook now to stay invested in that universe, because like I'm
Agreed.
not someone who has the time to absorb. I mean, there's so much Marvel content. You've got all the TV shows which do feed into the
That's
universe.
where they went wrong for me. Like, um, and I'm not a huge fan of Disney Plus. I'm actually not a huge fan of Disney at all at the moment. Like, obviously their decision to stop creating physical media in Australia is something I'm still really angry about. Because once they take away the choice from the consumer, they can do whatever they want with their media. They can edit it, they can censor it, they can remove it completely, and then it's no longer available. They can do whatever they like with it. Um, but I think the advent of the TV shows was. I've enjoyed don't get me wrong, I like the TV shows, but I think we've talked this before. When I rewatch my MCU, which I will do every couple of years, I do probably do it every other year. One thing I'm not doing is watching the TV shows. I'm just not doing
Mm.
it. Like, because I finished, Endgame and Spider-Man Far From Home. The next thing out is WandaVision and Falcon Winter Soldier and Loki, and it's like I don't want to watch like 40 episodes of TV.
Mm.
Like, I just want to like get to the next adventure. Like, and Loki season 2 was brilliant. I loved it. I thought it was the best. I didn't love Loki season 1. I felt like it wasn't really my thing. I didn't dislike. I just think it was a year of really good TV, and Loki kind of sat somewhere in the middle. But season 2, they upped their game. Like they did a great job. I really enjoyed it, and I loved what it set up. But am I going to go back and watch Loki season 2 every year? Like probably not. Look, I'm just going to go, if I want Loki, I'll go watch the Avengers. Like, yeah. So I do agree with you. Like I think the TV's shows in theory was a cool idea, but it's we talked about this I think on our old podcast when after we watched Solo, we were talking about Solo, and when
the lemonade drink.
Yeah, the thirst quencher, 5% crushed lemons. No, it was.
I'm so sorry. You're on a really good point there as well. Go.
Yeah, but I liked it, and you made me want Solo now, and I remember that label. I committed that to memory. Solo, a Star Wars story. Like at the end, Darth Maul shows up, and I remember afterwards, I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, why? Like, where in the timeline is this movie? Because Darth Maul should be dead, shouldn't he? Shouldn't he?" And then I think you told me like, "Oh no, in Clone Wars he showed up," and right then and there I was like, this is why the Netflix shows don't tie into the movies, because if you don't watch the Netflix shows, like, you can't. And then Daredevil shows up, you're like, who is this guy? Although they did end up doing that anyway. And now as a Marvel fan, I'm like, well, I watch all this stuff, but even then I haven't watched all of it. I haven't watched I Am Groot. Like they're just 5-minute shorts. They're not going to add anything to the story. They're just cute things for kids. So
the other thing I would say is as well is like I really adored the model of Phase 1, which was like Captain America film, Iron Man film, Thor film, team up film, and then you knew the fact that like you had this incredible film Avengers, which just stands up. It's just so freaking good.
To this day, it just works.
And then you're like, okay, I'm now conditioned to like it's going to be 3 or 4 years between the next team up film, and I'll look forward to the next like individual Thor adventure. But then it became the norm. They kept having to one up themselves, and I think the norm to do these crossover, like every film was a crossover film. But then, like I mentioned needing that guidebook. It's like, well, now like I go into like I haven't seen a lot of the newer ones, let's say in the last 2 years, but I feel like the Marvels. It's like, well, what do I go in to that? What expectations should I take into that film? You know what I mean? I just don't know. It's like,
well, that movie. I was really excited for that movie because they were bringing Miss Marvel, and if you didn't watch the Miss Marvel TV show, it was probably my favorite thing that came out that year. I really liked it. I've always liked that character in the comic books, because she's basically like, she's like Peter Parker if he was a fanboy for Marvel heroes. So she's really smart and she's clever, but she also she's obsessed with the superheroes of the world she lives in because they're the rock stars to her. So she gets very dorky and stuff. So I've always loved that, and I thought the TV show did a great job of doing that, but also balancing kind of like her. I want to say I think she's Muslim. I can't remember, but like her Muslim heritage and like how, how come the heroes only save like the people from white neighborhoods? Like they managed to do that without making it overly political. But I really liked it, and I loved that actress. I thought she was a great casting choice. I couldn't wait to see her in this movie, and I was just like, I hope she gets enough time to shine. And this movie really is her film, which I think was something that a lot of people weren't expecting as well. I think they were expecting it to be mainly a Captain Marvel film. Maria Rambeau, who plays one of the other Marvels, if you haven't seen WandaVision, you're like, who is this? Like her first appearance was in WandaVision in a couple of episodes. Miss Marvel, I feel like you don't need to have seen the show to appreciate it, because like very early on, you're like, okay, we know exactly what this kid's all about. And like the villain was very much like Ronan. Do you remember Ronan in Guardians of the Galaxy? Like down to the fact where she's from the same race.
Was that Lee Pace?
Yeah. Like she's from the same planet and has the same weapon he did. Like that's how much she's like. And Lee Pace, I think, was a little bit underutilized in Guardians. But Guardians is such a great movie and has such a great ensemble and is so fun. Like you kind of forgive that. The Marvels is not Guardians of the Galaxy, but there's still a lot of fun to be had. And that post-credit scene, even though it got spoiled for me, I think before the movie came out, it gave me like shivers. I was like, this is so cool. I can't believe like we're doing this finally. So I won't spoil it because the movie's still in theaters for those who haven't gone to check it out yet. But yeah. I think we talked about the killer, and then like
you know what? I want to move on to our main topic as well, but I'll just quickly mention like Tar, really, really good. It's really topical. of the time. It's like Kate Blanchett playing a classical music conductor. She's the first female conductor to conduct all 5 Mahler symphonies or something like that. I don't know enough about classical music to
Sure.
to say that, but really good performance by Kate Blanchett, and it's not a light movie and it's quite long, but I thought it was really good.
Nice.
And the last thing I'll mention is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, which is just elite.
Yeah, I missed that one. I missed
not
it.
quit.
Yeah, I've got to check it out. I thought of you the other day. I was looking at a movie pre-orders because I've been doing a bit of buying again. When am I not doing buying? And I was like, oh, Mission Impossible's out on Blu-ray already, or it's coming out on Blu-ray already. I was like, man, Nick and I probably should have gone to see that one. Like, I know how much he loves that franchise. We went to the last one together where old Henry Cavill treats his arms like shotguns and pumps them up. Like, how was Dead? So it was. You said it was elite. So you obviously, I mean, I would have been shocked if you didn't like it, but you clearly dug it.
Yeah, I almost like it's. This will sound sacrilegious, but I almost think it's like overtaken the James Bond franchise as like the premier sort of action franchise. And I think that this was a really strong entry, maybe not quite as good as Mission Impossible Fallout, which I think is probably the best film of the franchise that you just mentioned, mostly because Henry Cavill has like an award-winning mustache.
Yeah, and one would say a franchise-destroying mustache because
yeah, it was so good it destroyed a universe.
It broke the Justice League.
But this one is actually, I like that it keeps evolving as well as looking back. So if any keen observers remember the first Mission Impossible, there was a character called Kittredge, and he's back in this one, as well as a new addition to the team who is, I can't think of the character's name, but it's played by Hayley Atwell, and she's great.
She's always good. Yeah.
And Pom Klementov is in it.
I love Pom Klementov. Look, I think she's such a great actress. And Mantis, obviously, like she's been done more stuff than just Mantis, but Mantis might be my favorite character from the Guardians. I feel like she's so underrated. Like, it's so easy to go towards like some of those stronger, bolder characters or cute characters, but like nothing she says or does is not great in any of those movies. She's always hilarious and interesting.
Yeah. So would recommend. Probably the best film I've seen in the past month or two, I'd say.
Wow, that's a big praise, and I agree with you on the Bond thing because Bond, I love the Bond films, particularly the Daniel Craig ones, but it's a very inconsistent franchise. It's kind of like hot and cold pretty quickly. Like even in Daniel Craig's series, I would say he's got 3 really good movies and 2 okay movies, whereas it feels like Mission Impossible, whether you're a fan or not, you can't deny they're consistent. Like if you know exactly what you're getting every single time, and it always elevates. So it always like if it's kind of like that John Wick thing you were saying before. It's like if they've done this, well, they're going to take it to the next step next time. And maybe like those films don't kind of play to me on an emotional level. Maybe that's why I don't like connect with them the way that you seem to. But there's no denying how incredible they are. Like Mission Impossible 3 has one of the best villains of all time. Like Philip Seymour Hoffman, like that whole monologue where he's like, "Do you have a wife, a girlfriend? I'm gonna hurt her." Like it's so like such a good performance. Like it just that malice. So yeah. All right, I'm keen to check out Dead Reckoning Part 1. But did it leave on a cliffhanger, or was it kind of like there'll be more coming?
It's a cliffhanger.
Is it him literally riding off the cliff? And they're like, will he land?
Well, that happens, but no, he does land. And
I know he rides.
It's like kind of comical the way he lands, actually.
Yeah.
I won't give anything away, but I think that is also like strangely topical for a Mission Impossible film. It definitely like has read the zeitgeist and as a villain to reflect that. So I won't spoil anything because I don't think that if you watch the trailers you would get that. So I don't want to spoil anything, but would definitely recommend. Just
interesting because the trailers to me, I'm like, it's just like another Mission Impossible film. It seems like very much more of the same, but I'm keen to check it out. I mean, I was already keen to check it out, but like you always have a really good way of selling me on just like little extra bits. So I'm keen. So you want to jump into the main event?
I think so.
So Nick and I went to the movies together, as we said before, a couple of weeks ago. We didn't go opening weekend. It took us a while to get our act together. But we went and saw the latest from Sir Martin Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon. Very different for a Scorsese film, I felt. I didn't know what to expect. The trailers were awesome. I was like, this looks like it's going to be a harrowing tale, and I was definitely right there.
Yeah.
But it's so unique for something he's made before. Like, we'll definitely dive into it, and I'll let you share your thoughts as well. But without going to spoilers too much, like, if I think Scorsese, I think like fast-paced dialogue. I think lots of pop culture needle drops in the soundtrack. I think quite dark, but lots of funny moments to kind of break it up. And even if people are unlikable, which most of his characters are, they have a certain level of charm about it. None of that is in this movie.
No, you're so right. One of the notes I made to cover you. It's funny that we kind of had the first opening kind of like comment is the same, but like I really like a lot of his films. Like think Goodfellas,
Mm-hmm.
Wolf of Wall Street. They're so propulsive. Like Wolf of Wall Street starts with a monologue. He's throwing a glass of orange juice into the bush, and he's like in a Ferrari, and the film is just like takes off, and you're just in. And like
Yeah, or like
Goodfellas,
as long as I lived, all I ever wanted was to be a wise guy, and it's like
yeah,
the 1950s music of him like crossing the street and stuff.
yeah,
Um,
and like this was the same. This felt like something where it's like, no, you're gonna get bogged down in this like misery, and you're gonna get stuck in like the swamp with the people in this film.
mm. Yeah, it is. And we should preface, although I don't know if your opinions have changed or what you think. It's great. It's really well made. Like in terms of like technical ability, it might be one of his best. Like visually, it's stunning. Like coming like down to the costume design and like the set design and the dialogue. And like I was reading this thing afterwards because it wasn't that I didn't get it. Like everything you need to know was on there. Because at one point I almost like to be like, see. Is Leonardo DiCaprio doing the thing that I think he's doing? And I was like, obviously he is, but I was like, surely he's not revealing it. And Scorsese said, this film isn't a who done it; it's a who didn't done it. Like it's one
Yeah,
of those,
yeah,
which I was like, that's actually that's a pretty good line.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I had a question for you to sort of like get a dialogue going. Is like, do you feel like this film was designed to be enjoyed? I mean, it's entertaining and it's beautifully crafted. As like it's beautifully shot. The costumes are incredible. I mean, one can only assume that they're really period accurate as well.
yeah,
I think it's Robbie Robertson's final score. Like he's a long time collaborator with Scorsese. But I guess do you feel like you're meant to watch this film and enjoy it?
yeah. We talked about this because afterwards, so because we went and saw it together, we went and saw it in like Lux or Gold Class. I think it was Lux, whatever the Hoyt's equivalent is. Um, And I was sitting there, and I don't know if you noticed, but there were a couple of times I was yawning, and it wasn't because I was tired or bored. I was exhausted, like emotionally. It was just so overwhelming. Where at one point I had to leave, and like I was talking to you after the film, I said I had to go to the bathroom, but like I could have held, but I just need to get like some fresh air and just like take a moment away from it. And we were talking about it after we watched it, and then you messaged me the next day asking if how my opinions had changed, and do you think this is a film that's not enjoyable by design? And I think it kind of is. I think it's meant to be. The beauty of the medium of film is it can evoke so much and it kind of presents so much and kind of play with your heart and the way you feel about things and kind of force you to feel a certain way. I don't think this film does that. I don't think this film by design is trying to make you feel sad or at any point. It's just saying this is the truth, or at least based on the book that was written. But according to the book, this is the truth, and we're going to present it to you, and you can decide how you feel. But the facts are pretty clear. Like this is pretty weighed up, and I don't think it's meant to be enjoyable. I think it's meant to be very much just kind of like, here's the information, process it as you will.
Yeah. Well, I found myself feeling almost claustrophobic in it
Yeah.
because, I suppose a brief synopsis. I don't know. Do you want to get into spoilers?
We'll spoil it. So spoilers. I don't think like because the book's been around for a while and is based on a true story. I think we can kind of get away with spoiling it. But if you haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon and you like, I just wanted to wait 3 months before I watched it, then sure, like you avoid this one. But we are going to go into some mild spoilers, for sure. So there you go. We've now given the warning. If you listen beyond this and you get annoyed, that's on you.
Um, so, a brief synopsis of the plot. So, there's one of the Native American tribes, nations. I should have noted down I couldn't remember if it was like Cherokee or Pawnee or yeah. Did you recall which nation? I just couldn't. I can't recall off the top of my head.
I'll see if it's listed. I've got it. It was Osage, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I say
so
that I'm looking at it on IMDb. It was Osage. I'm
yeah.
like, was it maybe this one? I've got the information.
So they essentially ousted from another nation. I think the Pawnee and exiled to Kansas. I think it's set, and they find
Oklahoma.
oil. Oh,
Yeah.
Oklahoma, sorry.
Yeah.
And they find oil. And I thought what was really interesting was the film starts with this burial of a artifact of theirs, and there's this weeping that they're burying it, and it's like a tragedy. They're mourning something, and that really is the way of life of theirs is about to end because they find oil, which brings incredible wealth. Like in the space of a generation, they go from, the film starts there meeting in a teepee in a field, and then the next scene, there's a town that's sprung up. They are the gentry of this town, and I think there's some text at the start of the film that says that the people of the Osage Nation were per capita the wealthiest people on earth.
And this is a part of history I was not familiar with. I didn't know that there was a portion of Native Americans that had wealth, because in the montage they show, they're kind of showing like them kind of showing off their extravagance, and they had white servants. And if it was made by anyone else than Scorsese, if it was made by Tarantino, I'd be like, well, this is a Tarantino thing. But like, because it was Scorsese, I'm like, wow, like what an insane part of history. Not insane, like how dare they have white servants, but just like I just can't believe I never knew this.
No, I agree, and I think that's probably like a lot of the reason the film was like so accurate and so grim. It's sort of like this is real, and we're not taking any liberties here.
Yeah.
But essentially, Robert De Niro is the sort of, I guess, the main antagonist of the film, and he has this plan to steal the wealth of this Osage people, essentially by killing them. That's all this is.
So he's marrying. So he owns I think he's a corn farmer, and he talks about how like he's not bothered by it, but he's clearly bothered by it. And what he does is he gets like members of his family to marry the Osage people, and then get the land and the oil titles in their family name, and then kills off the spouses so they can take over the wealth. Pretty dark. Yeah.
Pretty dark, and that's throughout the film we follow a few characters, and I should say that I thought it was incredible performances from the main three characters in the film. So Lily Gladstone, who played
best performance in the film. I think she's incredible. I've never seen her anything before. She's amazing. I was blown away.
And she plays the Osage lady that she's the one of the daughters of this wealthy family, and Leonardo DiCaprio plays, to be honest, a fairly dim-witted army veteran coming back from World War One.
I wanted to ask you this. Did you enjoy Leonardo DiCaprio's performance in this film?
No, but with a caveat, I was just about to say.
Sorry,
I thought it was a really no. It was a good point, because I was going to say I thought it was a really generous acting performance, because I thought that like he played it that way.
Yes, and I want to clarify. Like, I'm not saying like it's a bad performance. He's not good. He's fantastic, but I've never seen Leonardo DiCaprio play so unlikable before.
Mm.
Like every time he was on screen, I was just like, I just like what a garbage human being. I just couldn't stand him. Like, which is true credit to his performance, and I agree with. I think it's very generous because at his caliber, kind of and profile now in Hollywood, he can just be like the sweetheart and everything. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And like he could live very successfully and have a wonderful career. So it is a generous performance, but yeah, look, even in again, I think I talked to you about this the other day. Like after we finished the movie, I was like, even in Wolf of Wall Street, like he's unlikable, but he's kind of charming and funny, and like that was kind of the point of that character. Like that's what Jordan Belfort was. So he was this horrible person, but people loved him. This guy, I don't know who loves him. Like this guy's horrible.
Yeah, yeah, he's a bit of a piece of shit. Um,
Going back to Lily
and
Gladstone, just a second. My favorite, I don't know, and we'll talk more about as we progress. But my favorite moment is like when he's hitting on her, and she's just like laughing and speaking in her native tongue.
yeah,
Like every like little emphasis is so amusing to me. It was some of the funniest moments. The very brief moments of levity in this film came from those conversations.
yeah. Or something I still find funny to this day is like Robert De Niro saying like he's explaining to Leonardo DiCaprio's character, this is what you'll find. They don't just fill the silence. They're happy to sit there and just be in silence. He's like,
Mm.
don't just talk. Don't. And he's just like, none of that blackbird talk. And they're like, chip, 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 chip.
Oh, that's what that message was you sent me the other day.
Yeah,
I'd forgotten about that line.
it's made me laugh ever since then.
I think you were making a reference to The Room because Tommy was like, "You chicken, chip, 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 chip."
It would have been an elite reference if Scorsese was referencing that.
Could we?
Um,
I want someone to do a mashup video of her and Tommy Wiseau just cheaping at each other.
but like going back to my point about feeling really claustrophobic and really trapped is, we kind of see from Lily Gladstone's perspective, and it's James, you said it. It's a grim film. Her sisters are just being killed off. We see it. One of
Mm,
them's poisoned. Another one is just shot dead.
yeah.
Um, this is not enjoyable. And then, she's being poisoned throughout the film as well. And you can just feel her
Yeah.
so helpless,
It
surrounded by these
it
people who
took
are
me a
just,
while to like catch on to that as well because at one point they talked about her having diabetes and then they introduced like, oh, insulin. We've come up with insulin. There's a lot of like kind of breakthrough kind of historical moments in this film, like, and I'll get to a major one in a second. But the whole idea of insulin and like it took me a while like to realize that they were tricking Leonardo DiCaprio's character. They're like, just give her the insulin that'll help. And then after a certain point, I'm like, oh, he's poisoning her.
Mm.
And I'm like, and then that's when I had that moment, which I had to, I was always going to ask you, like, is he poisoning her? And does he know? And at a certain point, I think he does know. He's just takes him a little while to catch on, and then when he catches on, he's just like, eh, like it's
Mm.
fine. But a huge thing that I didn't realize until it showed up in this film is that this film and this particular story is the catalyst for the creation of the FBI.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that at all. And I think,
Mm.
I haven't read the book that this is based on, but I understand that that's a large part of the book is following Jesse Plemons' character, who is the lead investigator who comes once it's been reported that these people are being killed off.
Mm. I can't remember who was the president or like who got it running now. I can't remember, but was it Hoover? Was it J. Edgar?
He was the director of the FBI.
Yeah, because I remember that reference, and I almost said to you, "I'm like, oh, Leonardo DiCaprio played J. Edgar Hoover in a movie
Yeah.
as well." So, um, but yeah, like the creation of the FBI, like this was the very first case on the FBI's docket. Like this is the first thing they ever kind of looked into, which I was fascinated by. I just couldn't. I was like, oh my goodness, like if you had have just told me the story of the people being killed, that would have been enough. But there's so much history in this film; it's just incredible.
Yeah. And what did you make of? So I'm sure I'm missing some here, but I would say there's three notable cameos in this film, and I'll leave the big one till last. But what did you make of so as the film progresses, and it's a very long film as well, isn't it? Um,
I'm trying to think of the major cameo that you're talking about. I know that.
I'm talking the first two were the two lawyers. So this winds up in
Brendan
court.
Fraser.
Brendan Fraser and John Lithgow play the two lawyers.
Yes.
And I thought that's why you give these important movies to Scorsese, because you can have like at 2.5 hours into a film, just as everyone's like starting to just feel the weight of this film, you can have these really two dynamic performers come in, like Brendan Fraser and John Lithgow, and it just lifts the film up. It just as it's starting to get buried under its own weight.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously Brendan Fraser is not playing a very likable character, but I did like the introduction of them, and you're right, it did help lift it. I'm just enjoying seeing Brendan Fraser on screen again, man. Like, he's got a very small role in this film, and you could have enjoyed this film without his cameo, but it was nice to have him in there, and it's nice to have him back. Like, I really enjoyed that. And John Lithgow, like, it doesn't matter how small, like big or small the part is, like he's always electric. He's always got something to bring. Did you notice? And I'm sure this is not the third cameo you're talking about. Oh, I know which one you're talking about now. I just realized because I'm going through the cast list. I'm like, Jack White was in this movie, but he was a radio show actor. But Foggy Nelson from Daredevil is one of the brothers. He's like very briefly in the scene where like the sister comes home drunk and like they're having the huge fight and they're trying to like keep them all apart. One of the guys holding the brother back is Foggy from Daredevil. I noticed that. I was like, is that Foggy? And then like it took me a moment.
I didn't pick that up at all.
I'm always looking for my Marvel, my Marvel.
Yes.
I'm like anything that I can relate to. But no, I liked them. What was your thoughts on those cameos?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I kind of phrased my question as my thoughts. I thought it was great to. It just shows like what a true master. I mean, it's no surprise that we kind of both love him. One of the first episodes I think I did on your
very
new
first
podcast
one,
was a top 5 Scorsese, but just what a master he is, where he can, I mean, he's made like 40 or 50 movies and over like half a century, just knows exactly when to inject something like that into his film to pick it up. And yeah, so I really enjoyed them coming in
and it was a perk up. You're right, because at that point, that happened after I'd left the cinema and come back, and it did kind of re-engage me. And again, like I need to stress, it's not a boring film, it's not a disengaging film, but it is emotionally exhausting. Like it will wear you out. And so they came in at the right moment. So I was like, oh, cool. Okay, so it's something, okay. I'm paying attention. I got Brendan Fraser, I've got John Lithgow. This is going to be great, and it really like brought me back in and kind of helped me kind of endure the rest of the movie. Again, emotionally endure, not not entertain, endure.
and I suppose, was there anything? I was going to talk about the way the film ends. You mentioned the radio play show. Was there anything you wanted to mention before? I suppose like once we speak about that, we've kind of wrapped the
good
plot
point.
of the film.
Let me think. There are a couple of. It's tough because it's a film where a lot happens, but in very gradual increments. It's not fast paced. It's not action packed. Like I was thinking about when they discover Molly's sister and they perform the autopsy right in front of everyone. Like that's a pretty gruesome scene, and it's very tastefully shot for Scorsese. Like Scorsese is not afraid to get gratuitous with his violence, but it is kind of in the background. It's not explicit as like it's the least violent Scorsese film I think as well. Like in terms of just visuals, like maybe Wolf of Wall Street's less violent, but there's some pretty like Goodfellas and Casino and stuff are pretty full on compared to this movie. But the emotional weight. But I just feel like my overall feeling throughout this film was just like dread and like despair. Like it was just not. It was not full of like I was never like, well, this is going to have a happy ending. Like there's just never felt like there was ever going to be a happy ending. And I'm glad that they didn't provide one. Like if they had have changed it to just like kind of please the audience, it would have been such a disservice. But I was talking about the film to my mum the other day because my mum came over and she asked me about it because she likes Scorsese as well, and she's been on the fence about it. She's heard a lot of mixed reviews. I'm like, look, there ain't no mixed. Like it's a great film, but and like here's the but, it asks a lot of its audience. It's not afraid.
Well, it's upsetting because what happened is upsetting.
Yeah. But it not only is it upsetting, but it asks a lot of its audience because it asks you to sit there for 3.5 hours and endure. Um, but I would say this is a step back in the. Not that he took a misstep, but I didn't love The Irishman. I have to give it another watch. Because I felt like when I watched it when Zoe was first born, so I was in the wrong headspace, but I kind of felt like it took a little while to get going, and it was very slow paced for one of his gangster films. But I felt like this was kind of he took everything he learned from that film and applied it to this one, and kind of executed it masterfully. So it is wonderful, and it's it is Scorsese still at the top of his game, but it is going to ask a lot of you as a viewer compared to some of his other films. Like you can watch a 3-hour film like Wolf of Wall Street, and it's like water for ducks back. It's just like, hey, I'm here for it. This one is a commitment. You're gonna have to pay attention. You're gonna have to prepare. Like you're gonna have to, be prepared to not be satisfied with the ending and not have a happy. Well, not satisfied, but not happy with the ending, and learn to just be like, just sit in that misery for a little while. But I think it's very brave. It's a very brave choice for Scorsese. I'm not saying it's the end of his career, but he's getting on in age. Like he could just rest on his laurels for the rest of his career and no one would have batted an eye. So it's impressive at his age and it's the kind of the span of his career to be like, you know what? Let's pivot. Let's do something different.
Yeah. I think I think you're right. It's a really good point there. It's like, he probably is, I mean, what's he in his 80s? He's probably is saying, like, now he's starting to understand, look, there's only so many more films I'm going to get to make. And it feels like he's really making an effort to make the important ones, the ones that he doesn't want to, doesn't want to let other people try and fail at.
Yeah, sure. I think that's probably the last few things I want to say before we get to the end. But yeah.
So I haven't really seen a film wrap up this way, and I thought it was really, really novel way to do it. But quite often, I don't know what it's called. There might be a term for it when you have like text at the end that says like James Chalmers lived happily for, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
it's like the like an epilogue, I guess, kind of like an epilogue, I guess, where like it's kind of like that's my favorite part of any biopic, by the way. Like it's such a trope, but like if I'm watching a biopic and there's not like text over the photos of the real people compared to the actors, like you've wasted an opportunity there. I want that. I love that sort of stuff.
I always love those ones, that version of that where it's just like, if there's like a running joke throughout the film, it's like, it's always just like, James lived happily in his house in Skye, something like that. And it's always just like, it's like, they always reference something. He's just like, and he never forgot his ice cream again or something stupid like that.
And he did finally pass his driver's test.
Yeah, exactly.
There was none of that in this film.
But it was really novel. So the film just cuts at a point. I can't remember at what point.
Me either.
But it just cuts to a ye olde radio play of this story that we've just been told. And it's like, this is where apparently Jack White was one of the musicians. But, we see a narrator saying, finishing off the story for us. And we see people doing the sound effects for like, breaking glass or like footsteps crunching or something like that. And then like the narrator leaves the stage and then, spoiler alert, Martin Scorsese walks on the stage himself and reads the last few lines of the narrator's dialogue. And it basically says that this event was written about. I don't want to do him a disservice, but he said in the events were written about, but the murders were never written about. And that's sort of the last. I'd love to be able to quote it. I just haven't done my homework.
I'll see if it's on IMDb while you're talking.
Yeah, and I thought it was a really, really interesting decision to have him come out. And I've like read a few little reviews, so I'm not going to pretend that these are my views, but I did want to ask. I know you're looking up something, so I'll keep talking for a little bit. But
here it is. So the last line is, Mrs. Molly Cobb, 50 years of age, passed away at 11 o'clock Wednesday night in her home. She was full-blown Osage. She was buried in the old cemetery in Grey Horse beside her father, her mother, her sisters, and her daughter. there was no mention of the murders.
Yeah, there you go.
Like haunting.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted. I wanted to ask you what did you think that meant, the decision for him to do it, and I won't give you that question just like without some context. So I've read a few different things. Um, I've read that it was a way to add like gravitas to the film, like a way to like add more weight to the story. I've also read that is that like a curtain call from him, like he's putting himself in the last film that he possibly makes, or one of the last films. Um, and then more interestingly, I think I read, or it was on a podcast I listened to, some analysis where they were saying, is this more of a comment on, I guess the way these stories are being told, which is, white filmmakers making films about like these kinds of things. So I kind of wanted to ask, what did you think, that sort of meant?
Yeah, at the time I didn't think too much of it. I thought about it a little bit since, and obviously, your questions kind of got the wheels turning. At the time, I didn't think too much of it. I was just like, oh, that's kind of cool that Scorsese did. But the more I thought about it, and the more reading I've done, I don't think it's a curtain call. I don't think it's Scorsese being like, and I'm done. I don't think I know like Quentin Tarantino is like, after movie 10, I'm done. But I think like most auteurs and creators will create until they're no longer able to create. I think that they'll just keep pumping out movies. I think like, in his 80s, probably towards the tail end of his career, Martin Scorsese has found a story that's truly important to him, where he's like, you know what, like, if I'm gonna put myself in a film and give myself some dialogue, this is the one to do it. I think it's more like, I think it means more to him, like, because don't get me wrong, all of his films are wonderful and well made, but they're mostly fun. Like, you could like, they're good popcorn movies. They're not like, there's not always a lot to take away from them beyond like, not that they don't like kind of spur good conversation or thoughts, but they're very much like they're for entertainment. They're entertainment. So Scorsese didn't need to put himself in this. He put his mum in Goodfellas, but he didn't need to put himself in. But I think this is one where, and I think similar to Chris Nolan, like during the pandemic, he kind of discovered this book and was reading about it. I was like, you know what, this is really important to me. I need to tell this story. People need to be aware of this story. It needs to be, it needs to be made known, and I have the kind of the platform to do it. And it clearly meant so much to Scorsese that he was like, you know what, if I put myself in there, then you know exactly where I stand on this issue. So I think it's more that. But I'd be keen to hear your thoughts, and I'm keen. I'm fine to be wrong as well.
No, I really like that take. I think you're pretty much on the money there. Look, I kind of like, I don't know if I'm a deep enough thinker about to really understand that last point about the way these stories are told. And like, is that a comment on, you know, is that a larger kind of like uh, implicit comment on, the way stories are told and those kinds of things. But yeah, I did, my first thought was like, oh, it is a curtain call, which is, now I'm like, no, I don't think he would be that vain, So I think you're pretty much on the money. I
And that
think,
vague. Like, if it was going to be his last film, like, if it's his last movie ever, like, wouldn't you build up that hype for a year? Like, this is the last film I'm making. Like,
yeah,
if you want to see Scorsese in the cinema, this is the last time you're going to do it.
mm,
I understand. I think I understand the idea of like a commentary on how these films are made, because most biographies and most stories based on true atrocities will tend to, you know, keep it as entertainment. So, like, what I mean by that, like, if you watch any World War II movie, rightfully so, the Nazis are always the bad guys and the Americans are always the heroes. But like, not everyone who was fighting on the good side were heroes. Like, you don't see the American soldiers kind of attacking the innocent German people or the Polish people. You don't. I remember I was listening to this interview with Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison's this fantastic writer from Scotland, and his father was in the war. I think it was World War II. He was in, and he was saying like his father told him the story about, like, they're like, right, there's a village down there. You can do what you want to the people there. You can kill them. You can use them. Whatever you want to do. No one's going to know about it. This town is pretty much free for us to use as we like. as long as we kill the bad guys. And he was like, "What are you talking about? Like, we're meant to be the good guys." And we are like, "This is the instruction from like a major or a general saying, hey, do what you want." And I think maybe that's what they're saying, is that most of these war pictures will kind of gloss over the full picture to kind of like show stories of heroism and triumph, which is important for morale, but also like history is a lot darker and grayer than most films I think tend to show. And in this film, like, there was no, I mean, I'm sure they still glossed over some bits and pieces, whether intentionally or whether it was lost to time. But this film, is very clear about the dark secrets of everyone involved.
Mm, mm. And I suppose, like, there's probably a larger point there that, as humble Australians, we probably just don't really understand about the, formation of America. There's like some dark stuff that would have happened there that, we have our own version of that, but
Yeah.
this kind of atrocities. But I did have one final question for you. Where does you think this movie for you fits into the wider Martin Scorsese catalog? Like, if we redid our top fives, would it make it, or?
It's an interesting question, and I think it's a tough question. Like, it's not tough for me to answer. It doesn't make my top five. And the reason for that is whenever I compile my lists, it's not just about what's the best made film. Because if I look at my top five films of all time, for example, like, I always do the same answer. It's Clerks, Hot Fuzz, Kill Bill 1 and 2, Back to the Future, and Midsommar. But like, technically, how many of those films are brilliant? And the answer is maybe Midsommar and Kill Bill. And that's not just actually Hot Fuzz. So they're all technically quite good. Clerks, obviously being an independent film shot for $27,000, like, is as technically good as it could be for the resources available. But like, if you put them up and you kind of ranked every kind of technical aspect and how film is measured, I don't think any of them would be on anyone's top five list based on that. But my one is like, well, how much do I enjoy it? How much am I going to rewatch it? Like, what do I get out of it? How does it fill my cup? And Killers of the Flower Moon empties my cup. Like, do you know what I mean?
It's a really
like,
great way of putting it.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a film that I will buy on physical media and I will watch again, and I'll probably watch it once every couple of years. But like, it's not entertaining, and it's not meant to be. But that doesn't mean because it's intended to not be entertaining, it deserves a place in my top five most entertaining films. I think it's a really harrowing and stark tale of some true atrocities, and it's to be commended. And again, like Scorsese, like, he knows how to make a picture. Like, it looks, it sounds, everything about it is brilliant. But it wouldn't be a top five for me in terms of the way kind of I approach a list. If I talk about it from the technical aspects only, then it'd have to be like a top two film. Look, I think technically it's so much stronger than his previous catalog because he just gets better and better with age and experience. But it wouldn't make a top five list based on the way that I kind of shaped my list on the podcast. There you go. I took that answer very seriously.
Oh, no, I loved it. And look, same as me. I had the same thought. Like, I would like to see it again, but I really just want to see it again to either confirm what I've been thinking about some of it, or to pick up some more stuff, or to disprove some of the things that I may have picked up in that first watching. But, to me, it doesn't feel like, if I think about some of the other films in that top five, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but it would have been The Departed, it would have been Wolf.
We both had Wolf, Departed, Goodfellas. You had Shutter Island.
Yeah, Shutter Island.
And we both had Casino, I think.
No, I don't think Casino would have been in mine. I reckon I would have had like Color of Money.
Oh, you did have Color of Money, I think. You did.
So these are all films.
You didn't have Gangs in New York. I remember noting that, yeah.
But, these are films that, like, every 18 months to 2 years, I'll need to scratch that itch. Or I'm like, oh, I need to see The Departed again. Like, I'll hear it mentioned in a podcast and it will trigger that thing where it's like, I need to see it. Or, just hearing you talk about the opening line of Goodfellas, I'm like, I want to watch that. Whereas this, I reckon once I watch it again, I can probably put it away for a while,
And look, I think like it comes back to the likability of the characters. Like, that's a big part of it. And again, it's deliberate, but yeah, like, there's no one, like, even, I don't know how this is going to be interpreted, but I would say even kind of the hero well, they're not even heroes, they're victims. Like, I would say that Molly is kind of likable, but she's very standoffish, and
Mm,
she's very kind of quiet, and like she's not enigmatic, and that's that's not a problem. But like, there's no one to latch onto where like, oh, I want to follow this person, I want to know their
mm,
story. Like, it maybe Jesse Plemons. Like, maybe Jesse Plemons is maybe the most like kind of the latch on character for you, but he shows up so late in the film and he's in it so little. Like, you don't even really get to kind of enjoy
mm.
his journey isn't enjoyable. It's just kind of like, oh, what's kind of what's his thing. So it's very much an anti Scorsese film
Mm.
in a way. Just as it flies in the face of everything he's done, which is such a bold choice and it really works. But yeah, it's not a top 5 film for me simply because like I couldn't put it on back to back to back to back to back. I could take it.
Yeah,
I could take Goodfellas, watch it 3 times in a day. I could take Departed. I could take Wolf of Wall Street 3 times a day, watch them. This one I would watch, and I don't need to see it for 6 months minimum. Like, it's just I need
mm.
to recover.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I thought that was a really eloquent way of putting it. Like films, like a lot of films, or your favorite films, fill up your cup, and I couldn't agree more. That like, yep, that one is a cup emptier.
yeah. And there are a few out there, like, and I can watch depressing films, but I think
Yeah,
knowing that it's so rooted in truth makes it that much harder to watch, and
yeah.
empties the cup even quicker. So, as it were. Um, but that is Killers of the Flower Moon. Great film. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Like, just because like, I feel like we're really bad at giving positive reviews because we both
I
love the
know.
film. We both love the film, but
It's funny you say that. I was just thinking, like, do I need to wrap up and say, like, it is technically brilliant and like it is a great film, but like it's serious on purpose and it's somber on purpose. So,
mm.
it's good to be prepared going into that.
And it's challenging, and I love challenging cinema. I love watching stuff and feel. I love watching. I did a whole episode with my friend Samantha, back I think it was episode 48, and we just talked about movies that make us uncomfortable. And I
Mm.
love feeling uncomfortable in the cinema. I can go and sit and watch Iron Man every day and feel great about it. But like, make me feel something I haven't felt in a movie theater before. Like, challenge me, make me feel like unprepared and awkward and weird and scared. Because if I'm going to feel those ways, I want to be in a controlled environment. And the best way to do is it in the movie theater. So it's going to challenge its audience, and that's why I think it has been divisive. But that just because it challenges you or makes you feel strange or uncomfortable doesn't mean it's not brilliant. It absolutely is. It's just not going to be one you want to, chuck on with the family and eat popcorn to. Like, and there's, and that's okay. There we go. We saved it. We saved the
Yeah,
review.
we say 5 stars.
I mean, like, it is a 5-star film. Any final thoughts on the film or any of the other little points we've made throughout this episode, Nick, before we wrap things up?
No, I think we're that's pretty much all I've got. I think unless you can. Oh no, we kind of covered it. The only other thing I keep saying every time I catch up with you, I keep saying like we got to do an episode on like the state of Marvel, the state of superhero, but we did cover it. So yeah,
Mm.
I
Yeah, I mean, look, we could. That's a whole conversation we can unpack at some point, and I imagine you'll share some of your thoughts on your next episode because Nick is coming back to record another show later this week. 2 recordings with you in a week. I'm so lucky. It doesn't happen very often.
no, but yeah, no, massive thanks for having me on to nerd out about the latest Scorsese film. Like obviously, like you,
I'm really glad you suggested it because it wouldn't have happened. So, like, I don't know, like no one else that I'm aware of in kind of the film snob family has gone to see that film because I not that like, they don't like Scorsese films, but it's a 3.5 hour movie, and I just don't think a lot of like the only other person I think who would go and see would be maybe Maddie or David, but they've both got kids,
mm,
and I've got a kid, but Tina was never going to watch this movie, so I could be like, hey, look after the kid. Um, and I just didn't think they could like make time to go watch a 3.5 hour depressing movie. So I'm glad you suggested talking about and doing kind of a review or discussion, because otherwise it would have been overlooked. And I think it's an important film to discuss and let people know, like,
mm,
hey, you should go check this out. Despite all of the things we said about it that might sound unlikable, it's a great movie, and you should go check out Killers for 100%. And then
mm,
watch The Killer on Netflix. Do a double
yeah,
feature.
like real that'll like fill your cup back up.
Absolutely. Or fill your cup up first, so that way when you do get emptied later on, it's not as devastating because you'll still have some leftover Fassbender.
Yeah,
This feels like it's
yeah.
getting vaguely dirty. I didn't mean it that way.
Fill up your cup first, empty it during flower moon, and it will be good to have an empty cup because you could pee into it because it's so long.
And that's why you get Nick Owen on the show, because who else would make that wonderful analogy? Well, let's wrap things up so we can go home. And by go home, I mean log off, because we're both home already. Huge thanks to Nick Owen for coming back on the show. As you know, it's always a delight. And even when it's a short episode, you know, he brings the goods. And boy, have I had fun in this last hour and a bit. If you want to support the show, jump onto Instagram. I was a teenage film snob, underscores between every single word. Follow me, like my posts, send me a comment, slide into my DMs, as it were. I communicate with everyone. If you talk to me, I'll talk back. I love hearing about your favorite movies and love getting into contact with you. Give the show a review, 1 star, 5 star, I don't mind. Tell me your top favorite films. I'd love to hear that. And thank you for the people who have been, because we just got our first ever rating average on Spotify Wrapped, and we got a 4.2 out of 5. That was awesome. Thank you so much for that. For those of you who would like to support the show financially, you can head over to tpublic.com and search for I Was a Teenage Film Snob. Or you can click any of the links in my Instagram profile. Right now, TeePublic are doing a huge sale over Christmas, so you can get a nice T-shirt, relatively cheap. It's good quality. It feels good. The design is awesome. It was designed by Josh, who's been on the show time and time again. Rep the show. Send me a photo. I'll pop it up on my Instagram. But that's how you can support the show financially if you want to. I don't make any money off it. It's just to get the word out. But that's going to do it. So big thank you to Nick again. Next week will be our Christmas episode, all things going according to plan. And then after that, it'll be our end of year special. And I'll tell you more about that as the time approaches, but really looking forward to that. But until all of those fantastic shows come up, as I say every week, guys, I was a teenage film snob, but I'm trying to be better. We'll see you next week.